Nigeria's COVID-19 record appears on the rise again after a one-week decline as the Nigeria Center for Disease Control confirms 437 new cases. Fuel scarcity imminent in Lagos State as petrol tanker drivers begin strike. In international news, mass anti-government protest in Beirut over deadly blast that has claimed at least 200 lives and displaced hundreds of thousands. And in sport, Mike Tyson's comeback against Roy Jones postponed.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. It appears the decline in number of infections in the country observed last week has evaporated as the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) reports 437 new cases. This new figure brings Nigeria's total infections to 46,577. As usual, Lagos carried the highest number of 107 cases. Abuja followed with 91. Plateau recorded 81. NCDC says more than 33,000 patients have been discharged and the death toll stands at just under 1,000. Lagos residents may experience scarcity of petroleum products as petrol tanker drivers begin a strike today, Monday. The National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, says its meeting with the Lagos State government has deadlocked. Southwest Chairman of NUPENG, Tayo Aboyeji, says the reason for the indefinite strike, including their demand, was not addressed, that extortion and harassment of members must stop. The union had complained that security agents and hoodlums are extorting its members and that Lagos State traffic management officials tased the union's drivers. He said it is very possible that the strike would affect other states because most of them load their petroleum products in Lagos depots. The Presidential Investigative Committee on the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has been given judicial powers. A panel led by Justice Isa Ayo Salami will now work in line with Section 1 of the Tribunal's Inquiry Act of 2004. A panel has also been approved to hold public sittings and should submit a report in 45 days. The panel is probing the EFCC suspended acting chairman, Ibrahim Mago. Among other cases to be taken up by the panel are the ones involving former Petroleum Minister Dizani Anderson Madueke and the nearly $10 billion judgment against the country by Process and Industrial Development. The panel will also take up complaints by the UK National Crime Agency in London. Worship centers reopened on Friday in Lagos after the state government lifted a months-long ban of religious gatherings. Some churches reopened on Sunday with fewer worshippers, as many are still concerned about the dangers of contracting coronavirus in large gatherings. Some church leaders have decided to still keep their doors shut as they observe the COVID-19 trajectory. They say the safety of their members are paramount and that they will announce soon when they will reopen. Meanwhile, correspondent Deji Badmos visited a mosque on Friday as they reopened their facility to worshippers. It tells us the state's COVID-19 measures are being observed.
Getting screens to gain access to the mosque for prayers. It's a new normal for houses of worship in Lagos, and it doesn't end here. Every worshipper is still required to write down their names and giving a tag before they are finally allowed in. And once the number required is complete, the gates are shut. Inside, everyone must observe physical distancing and have their face mask on in line with the guidelines issued by the government of the city. It's the very first time this mosque will be reopening for worshippers in nearly 5 months after the government shut down all worship places in the city to check the spread of COVID-19.
Even the mosque itself took so many measures. Like sanitizing of the mosque, it was done. I think twice, we did it twice. The sanitizing of the people that will come to worship, we make sure the waters are running, not inside the mosques and even outside the mosques. We have soap to wash their hands, so that they are coming from outside. They might be contaminated with so many things. Their hands are washed, and we are taking records in case we have an issue, so that easy contact and contact tracing can be made.
The turnout is very, very impressive, and on the part of the restriction, of course, we have to start from somewhere. We have to start. This is more or less like a litmus test, and of course, we are good to go.
For many worshippers, the reopening of religious centers is a welcome relief and gives them the opportunity to also meet with friends they have not set their eyes on since the COVID-19 induced restrictions were imposed.
It feels so good. For the past 4 months, we've not been to mosques. We have little prayers. We do prayer around 12, 1. We couldn't do all that. But now that the mosque is open, we are so grateful to Allah that at last it is open. We can gather and pray Jumat. Alhamdulillah.
Authorities say this is only just a test to assess the readiness of the worship centers to comply with the COVID-19 guidelines. For now, both mosques and churches are only allowed to hold services once a week, until when the government feels it has the COVID-19 situation very much under control to allow for full-blown operations of worship places.
Hundreds of mourners flocked to Ijebu-Igbo area of Ogun State on Sunday for the burial of late Senator Kashamus, who died of COVID-19 complications on Saturday. Kashamus died at First Cardiology Consultants in Lagos and was buried in his hometown according to Islamic rites. Massive crowds defied the COVID-19 weekend lockdown in Ogun State and besieged the residence of the late PDP chieftain on Sunday morning. They described him as a philanthropist. There were uncontrollable tears and wailing as Kashamus' corpse was carried and later lowered into the grave. The deceased lawmaker represented Ogun East Senatorial District.
Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you'll need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, Africa News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Moroccan King Mohammed VI has issued instructions on Sunday that emergency medical and humanitarian aid be sent to Lebanon following last week's tragic explosion at the port of Beirut. He has instructed that a military field hospital be deployed to Beirut to provide emergency medical care to the injured. The field hospital is made up of 100 persons, including 14 doctors from various specialties: ICU specialists, surgeons, traumatologists, neurosurgeons, and others. The aid is not limited to medical supplies, but includes food products as well: canned foods, powdered milk, oil, sugar, and other food items. It also includes tents and blankets and preventive medical equipment against COVID-19, mask, coats, and hydroalcoholic gel. King Mohammed VI expressed compassion and solidarity with Lebanon in these difficult times. Beirut was rocked by a massive explosion on Tuesday, causing at least 150 deaths and nearly 5,000 injuries. The National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda is set to launch a study on the current job market in Rwanda during this COVID-19 period, where the number of job losses is likely to increase. This comes at a time when a recent survey in February this year found that 48% of more than 7 million Rwandans were able to work or employed. Innocent Mugabo reports.
The private sector, such as hotels, bars and factories, is one of the leading employers in the country. As Rwanda battles the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, this has caused some of the activities to shut down during the lockdown. This has resulted in the termination of employment contracts for employees with 3 months without pay. It was only hoped that if the situation returned back to normal, they would resume work as usual. It has been a year since I graduated in finance studies. They tell us that things are complicated to find a job in this period of COVID-19, and where I tried applying, they are now out of business. Some private companies say that due to the COVID-19 pandemic that hit their businesses so hard, they have decided to cut staff. Here we had about 20 employees, but now we are left with only 6, since their work reduced in different ways. We deal in tourism, and the activities haven't fully been given a green light, so things are still at a standstill. On the other hand, new companies emerged and offered jobs to those that had lost them and those that did not have them. At the start, we had about 35 employees, but currently we have about 80 of them due to the need caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, whereby we needed like motorists to help us in making deliveries. To some of the companies that had suspended employees in April, they were told that if activities were resumed, they would return to work. Currently, there are those that have been expelled and given compensation. Representatives of the labor unions in Rwanda expressed concern over some of the companies that have permanently suspended workers, claiming it is due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Statistics show that a survey on employment and unemployment in February 2020 found that 48% of Rwandans over the age of 16 with the ability to work were the ones who had jobs. James Byiringiro, the survey program manager at the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda, says that even during the COVID-19 period in May, another study was conducted on the rate of employment and unemployment and is said to be released this month. A survey conducted by the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda in February 2019 showed that 45% of Rwandans with the ability to work were over the age of 16 with jobs. In February 2020, the number of the unemployed rose to 48% of the 7.4 million unemployed population. In general, 76 had employment, while 24 of those included students and adults, and another 13% were unemployed.
Uganda's Minister for Kampala, Betty Amongi, has flagged off mask distribution in the capital with more than 200,000 masks dispersed through local councils. Amongi has asked the public to wear masks to protect themselves from contracting coronavirus. UBC correspondent Shaidat Masako reports.
Today we are flagging off distribution of masks in Kampala.
The government, through Ministry of Kampala and KCCA, has started the exercise of distributing face masks in all the 5 divisions in Kampala. The distribution started in Kampala Central Division and Machindye in areas of Bukesa, Kololo, Kamocha, Old Kampala and Nakasero. Masks were handed over to local council leadership. The local councils on village levels could not hide their joy upon receiving these masks.
The number of the masks is very little, according to the people I have in Kololo. So I'm just requesting that if they can give me more masks to give out.
The Minister for Kampala Metropolitan, Betty Amongi, says Kampala contributes 90% in the spread of COVID-19 according to the current dates in the country, making it the epicenter of the main spread.
Out of the 5 people who have died, 4 are from Kampala. If we do not take keen interest in Kampala, Kampala can be the epicenter. The mask is to be given at a household level from the age of 6 years onwards.
The Executive Director, Kampala Capital City Authority, Dorothy Saka, has urged the public to wear the masks to fight the spread of coronavirus.
Banayi twekuume COVID waddala abantu batandise okufa wano mu Kampala tugondere ebiragiro by'amateeka ga COVID.
Chisaka reached out to one of the families in Machindia Division and demonstrated how these masks are worn and handled. The overall masks are located at all the 5 divisions at 2,067,500, and the distribution is per household from the age of 6 years and above. Shaidat Nasaku, UBC News.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Hundreds have been injured in Beirut as Lebanese police fired tear gas to disperse protesters in the second day of anti-government demonstrations triggered by last week's devastating explosion, which has killed 200 persons and displaced hundreds of thousands. Reporter Adu El Marouki gives us the details.
Lebanon's iconic Martyr Square was expecting scores of protesters. Its streets were emptier than on the day before. The roads security forces once blocked were now open for people.
With fewer protesters, the rallies appear to be losing momentum. But for those who joined, they're still pursuing their demands, asking for full resignation from parliament members and the entire cabinet.
We will continue and push for protest no matter what, until we make this government, not only the Speaker or Parliament or the Prime Minister, everyone must go. We want independence. People who know what this movement is about. This is a revolution.
Despite their decreased numbers, protesters seemed to take security forces by surprise. Bursting in rage, they cornered a group of riot police, forcing them to flee from the rally. Barriers blocked their way to the parliament, but they kept throwing rocks anyway. Many say they are desperate.
Everything is ruined. People don't have food to eat. They cannot drink. They cannot buy houses. The houses are ruined. It's already ruined. So whatever. Yeah. They are super angry and they have nothing to do anymore. And they always tell you, don't fight anyone who has nothing to lose, and they have nothing to lose.
While some cabinet ministers and parliament members did submit resignations on Sunday, protesters said they are not convinced these are meaningful moves.
Year after year we have hopes. Now we have no hopes. The only hope is to kick them all out. And everybody, not one single person. The one who's gonna resignate now, all the ones that are resigning, this is a theatrical. When you feel that everybody's dead, you don't resign in the same moment. You wait 3 days, 4 days. What do you think?
The Lebanese government withdrew its forces from the streets to avoid more clashes. It urged protesters to keep their rallies peaceful.
Thousands of UK National Health Services NHS workers have taken to the streets to protest against the exclusion from a recently announced public sector pay rise. 91 million public sector workers, including senior doctors, will be given an above-inflation pay rise backdated to April. More than 1 million NHS staff, such as nurses, cleaners and care assistants who are on a different contract, were not included. Reporter Willow Abdafid has more.
While facing a dangerous virus, public health protesters believe now is the best time to make their demands. They're asking for a substantial pay increase to recognise nurses, but also colleagues like carers, cleaners and hospital porters.
We just want to be paid what we're worth, really. So over the years, I always feel that we've been undervalued and underpaid, and typically due to the coronavirus, I don't feel that we've been recognised for putting ourselves out there on the front line and putting our families at risk.
540 frontline workers have passed away from the pandemic. Now their families are left without someone bringing money in, they're suffering, and we still have to go to work, and corona is still around.
Across the 4 nations of Britain, protesters gathered in more than 30 cities, despite a 4th local lockdown being imposed in the north of England. Infections are increasing in several areas.
Many people may well support a pay rise for NHS workers, especially during a pandemic and when COVID-19 has been so dangerous in hospitals and care homes. Others, however, will question why nurses and medical staff are encouraging large gatherings at a time when infections are rising in the UK.
Tens of thousands of other public service workers were rewarded with wage increases in July, so frontline health workers are feeling overlooked. They want a considerable 15% hike now instead of waiting until next April when they're due another pay rise.
It's not just about money in our pockets, it's about the ability to recruit and retain staff in the NHS so that we can do the job that we're expected to do.
Since the COVID crisis happened, it's kind of brought to light just how unfairly we are treated. I've worked nearly 50 hours a week in the last 5 weeks, and my pay slip is basically the same as if I'd worked just 30, and I'm so tired and I can't deal with it anymore.
Most try to keep some social distancing and wore face coverings. Masks are mandatory in more indoor public places from now on, in Scotland and England.
Belarus presidential election has come and gone, but Belarus' main opposition candidate, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, has rejected election results that has the country's longtime president, Alexander Lukashenko, winning with an 80% landslide, while Tikhanovskaya garnered just under 10% of the vote. Riots started across the country in protest in which more than 3,000 persons have been detained and dozens injured during clashes with police. Tikhanovskaya is a former English tutor who became an unexpected rival to Lukashenko. She also became the face of the opposition after taking over from her husband, Sergei Tikhanovsky, a popular YouTube blogger and former candidate who has been jailed since May. The United States total cases of COVID-19 infections have now surpassed 5 million, by far the highest in the world. Johns Hopkins University data confirmed the U.S. is the worst hit country, followed by Brazil and India, each with more than 3 million and 2 million infections. U.S. health officials say for every reported case of COVID-19, there are around 10 times as many infections. New cases in the country stand at about 54,000 a day, down from a peak of more than 70,000. Up next, sport. Mike Tyson's comeback against Roy Jones postponed. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, boxing great Mike Tyson's attempted comeback against Roy Jones Jr. has been postponed. Both fighters in their 50s were scheduled to meet in an exhibition bout next month, but that has now been pushed to November. California State Athletics Commission said both fighters will have to take all required medical tests for fighters over 40, as well as California State Athletics Commission's emergency regulations that have been put in place to slow the spread of COVID-19. Juventus have appointed a new manager, Andrea Petroleum, to replace Maurizio Sarri. The Italian club sacked Sarri after just one season despite winning Serie A. 41-year-old Petroleum signed a 2-year deal and played 164 games for Juventus between 2011 and 2015. He won 4 Serie A titles in Turin after joining from AC Milan. That is CNN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.